Well, and I can only speak to Washington, where we cover all of South King County, all the incorporated parts, and it's just gotten increasingly bad. Like the crime has, I swear, skyrocketed in the last couple of years. We're so busy, the phones are ringing off the hook. It never stops, day and night. And so I imagine, and I know some police officers, they go their whole career and they never have to pull their weapon. But if you ever come close, does
yeah, a couple of times.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the WAGOA podcast. My name is Amara Barnes, and today I am interviewing Martin Castellanos out of Boca Raton, Florida. I'm always excited to speak with an expert. His experience is extensive. So, Martin, welcome. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you're raised, where you came from, and how you got to this point?
Sure. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be on the show. Please call me Marty. My friends all call me Marty.
Okay. Great.
So I was born in Colombia, South America. My grandfather worked for the American Embassy, and they really liked him, and they helped him with his paperwork to get up to immigrate to the United States. He moved up with his sons. One of them was my father, and they sent money home and got their wives and kids up to, bit by bit, transplanted the family up to New York. So we immigrated in 1971. I grew up there, went to a lot of Catholic school, a lot of Catholic school, which prepared me for the military, believe it or not. We moved down to Florida in 1986. I finished high school. I joined the United States Coast Guard as a reservist and did that for about 11 years. Worked a bunch of security jobs, a little bit of corporate loss prevention and investigation, stuff like that. In 97, I had the opportunity to go full time, and I got a spot on the Coast Guard's tactical law enforcement team out of Miami, Florida. And we did counter narcotics patrols and just national defense patrols around the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific. And that led up to 2000, late 2000, 2001, I got hired by the Boca Raton Police Department. I switched back to the reserves. Ironically, I finished the academy in June, started on the job training, and completed on the job training the morning of September 11th. So I got off at 7 o'clock in the morning, went home, went to bed, but then all my friends told me to get on the television and see what was going on with us being under attack. So I switched back to active duty military. I got some training assignments in Mayport and New York, some security assignments in and around the New York Harbor area, the power plant, the high-value asset targets like the United Nations, the Statue of Liberty, the tunnels, the bridges, the downtown area, Battery Park. Ground Zero was considered a crime scene by the FBI, so they had to make sure that there wasn't any unauthorized traffic. So we had the water side of that massive operation for a couple of months.
Oh, wow.
So I was home by Christmas and reignited my police career and did that for the following 20 years. In 2009, I had another opportunity to return to active duty, and I was assigned to the Coast Guard's pre-deployment program at Blackwater in North Carolina. So I had the opportunity to train alongside and learn from the professionals there, the combat veterans, and just it was a wealth of knowledge. The company gets a political reputation, but honestly, the men and women that worked there were professionals. They were patriots. And they were very gracious with their knowledge to help me and my students for their missions. It was amazing. It really was. I came back at the end of 2012 and served at the Boca Raton Police Department until 2021, where I retired from there. So I've managed to retire twice.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So in 2020, I started my business just because I saw the end coming on both careers, but I really, really had a passion for teaching. I started training cops in 1995 for the Coast Guard. Yeah, my stepdaughter laughs at that. 1995? Yeah, 1995. She gets a kick out of that. And I just really enjoyed teaching. Somebody looked out for me when I was brand new and I didn't know anything, and I still don't know a whole hell of a lot. But it was a way to pay it forward within the organization, with the military and with law enforcement, to be able to turn around and help somebody out because somebody helped me out and kept me alive. The resources and the just the different thinking outside of the box for learning and practicing and training. as well as the unfortunate blood lessons from tragedies that teach us lessons the hard way. So there's just a wealth of knowledge that I could be a conduit for. I didn't make up a lot of this stuff. A lot of it was just, I saw value in a lot of things. I was able to carry it and hand it off to somebody else. And I wanted to keep doing that beyond retirement. So I started my small company to do that.
No, it's kind of perfect. If you could pick like your favorite part of that whole journey, could you think?
No, I really couldn't. I wouldn't change a thing about my military career, my police career. It was incredible. It really was. I joined the Coast Guard because I knew I wanted to be a cop. I didn't want to go the college route, and I should have. I should have paid more attention to my health, fitness, and education. I'm not going to lie, but I wouldn't trade what I did do because it all taught me something. There was good, the bad, and the ugly, but it was amazing. A couple of highlights. I was selected as the reserve enlisted person of the year for the Atlantic Fleet of the Coast Guard, and that was a huge honor. I got to go to headquarters and meet the commandant, and it was a distinguishing honor. And when I was a police officer, I helped a baby that had just been born, and the family didn't know what to do because it was in the living room, and the baby wasn't breathing, and I was literally across the street. So my sergeant and I showed up, and we ran upstairs, and we were able to help the baby get started breathing because otherwise it would have been a tragedy. Wow. And that was one of the high points of my career. It was incredible.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I've heard that kind of thing over the phone as a dispatcher, but to imagine being able to just run in and help somebody like that, I'm sure that
right. Yeah. And it's hilarious because I had a vacation day, and my sergeant said, "Hey, listen, if you could work Wednesday night or whatever night it was, it would really help us out because we're short, and a lot of people needed the night off for something." And I said, "Sure, I can change my vacation and start later." And I wasn't even supposed to be there. It's like the Clerks movie. I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Oh, it was meant to be. Yeah,
it was hilarious. You're right. So at 3:00 in the morning, I got a 911 call for a retirement home where there was a sweet little old lady that dialed 911, and she was older and confused. And I was in the facility with her, checking on her, across the street from the apartment where the baby was being born. And so it not only meant to be there, but like right there. And I could imagine the dispatcher was tense. You could just tell, like dispatchers can tell when cops are tense because there's something in front of them that's scary. Or you can tell when the dispatchers are tense because they're reading something on the prompter or listening to something on the phone that's
right.
That's a hot call. So it was like newborn baby not breathing, respond code 3, and I was like, ugh. So I'm driving across the street, staring at my elbows, putting gloves on while I stare with my elbows. I almost hit my sergeant, as we parked at the same time to get out. We were actually both in the Coast Guard together. So it was hilarious to kind of run upstairs together. And as I'm running up the stairs, I'm thinking, Jesus, please give this baby 60 seconds. We're here. Just give us 60 seconds to reach this baby and we can help her. And then I was also thinking, please, Lord, just don't let me fall on these steps and land on my face because Sean's right behind me and he's going to tell everybody. It's just the kind of friend he was.
Right.
We get up there. We got it done. I got her breathing. He cleared her airway, and the paramedics came and took her away. And it was like, wow. I don't think I slept for 2 days after that.
Oh, I believe you.
That's awesome. Yeah, but like you said, it's a high point. That was a high point of my police career.
Yeah. Well, and I can only speak to Washington, where we cover all of South King County, all the incorporated parts, and it's just gotten increasingly bad. Like the crime has, I swear, skyrocketed in the last couple of years. We're so busy. The phones are ringing off the hook. It never stops day and night. And so I imagine and I know some police officers, they go their whole career and they never have to pull their weapon. But have you ever come close?
Yeah, a couple of times. Like when we got an alarm and say in a house middle of the night and we show up, nobody's home. Maybe they're snowbirds, maybe they're on vacation, maybe they're just out. If we find an open door or a broken window, we have to assume that there's a burglar in that house right now. So we get at least one other officer and we clear the house together with our weapons out. So you're tense, turning every corner, every doorway, every room, thinking that it could be right now.
Right.
Anytime we stop the car, if we stopped a stolen car or a suspect suspect vehicle for a felony or a violent crime, our guns are out and they're pointed at the bad guys because it's the best, quickest defense or the best, quickest control right now. And that's why the gun's out and that's why it's pointed. And it was tense every time. We learned something every time. We were able to go back and say, you know what? I could have done that smoother. I could have done that position better. And we could always learn. So we either succeed or you'll learn. That was just a good way to look at all those tactical calls. Boca Raton is a good mid-sized city. You cut that out.
I won't.
Fantastic. Take two. Boca Raton is a good mid-sized city. It was busy enough. It's about not as busy as Fort Lauderdale, not as crowded, I think, not as hectic. And crime goes up and down in different areas. But yeah, we had our share of excitement. It wasn't Fallujah, It's not like Chicago or something like that. But it wasn't, Mayberry either.
Yeah, for sure. Well, a lot of our policies changed over the last few years with how crazy everything has been. The Black Lives Matter.
Especially if there was a surge, yeah.
Yeah, and with the way they took over downtown Seattle, Capitol Hill, like, I don't know if you heard about all that.
We were watching.
Stuff, but
yeah, we were watching that stuff, yeah.
It was just terrible, and Seattle was like, oh my God, we're overrun, we need some help. And all of the cities had to say, nope, you kind of did this to yourself. We need our own resources to stay in our area. You're on your own. And that was really scary, hearing these police officers on these radios being like, we do not have enough people, in plain English being like, send help. And nobody could go. And so,
that's
yeah, through all of that, like, on the other end, I know that a lot of the policies as far as pursuits go and how police handle their subject contacts and everything, I know that's changed quite a bit. Did that change much for you guys in Florida or not as much?
I think it was in good shape to begin with. So a good use of force continuum, in the old days, morphed into a response policy. So there used to be a use of force continuum that you might still see in civilian training, where there's a physical presence, verbal command, soft control, hard control with a tool in your hand, and then deadly force. And that somewhere in there was stun guns, pepper spray, dogs. Okay. It depended on the technology. Technology changes, and every once in a while the language might change for the policies. But I think it was established pretty well, a short time before I got there. So I didn't see much of a change. I didn't. Okay. The latter went away, so because a lot of people were just kind of feeling like they had to go step by step, and that challenges you in the moment to make a decision, to think, I have to try this first. I have to try this first. I have to try this first. So that's not the case. You might have to go straight to deadly force if you're in immediate danger or somebody else is in immediate danger. That translates to civilians as well. It would be nice if talking to somebody in a stern voice got them to stop what they were doing and leave you alone. It would be nice if that didn't work, if you pulled your gun out and they were like, oh, okay. And that actually happened to me one time off duty, and that was good enough. It would be nice. But some people aren't listening, or some people choose not to listen, and some people present a threat, and you might have to do that. Thank God I've never had to take anyone's life or to employ deadly force, but we were ready to every day, in 2 careers. So
you never tried, like, say please and say, no, please don't. This is a safe space.
Right. I'm feeling marginalized by your mugging me. Could you not? Right. Could you not?
Yeah. I know.
Right. Well, you know what? A lot of what we do in survival or defensive tactics is biology, and a lot of that comes from the animal kingdom, whether there's the predator mindset or what you present as a predator, and it's the predators aren't polite, and sometimes a predator only understands a predator.
Yeah, no, boy, I agree with that. Yeah. So were you always armed, like all the time?
Pretty much, yeah. Anywhere that is legal, I'm armed. In Palm Beach County, you can't carry into a courtroom. So even as an on-duty police officer, I wasn't with the sheriff's office, so we had to put our guns in a locker to go inside of the courthouse. And the sheriff and the judge only wanted their deputies armed in that building. And I get it, because it connects to the prison system and the jail system, and a failure in there could domino into a big, long hostage situation. And if you don't want too many cooks, spoiling the soup for that operation. I get that. I totally do. I totally understand the value of not having a everybody with a gun on their hip on an airplane. So when I fly for vacation or for a training operation, I'm not wearing a weapon. I could have carried a weapon if I was transporting a prisoner, but my job never had me doing that on commercial aircraft. I did some prisoner transport for the Coast Guard, for some immigration cases, but they were usually military flights. So it was our airplane, our weapons. We were armed. We had to talk with the pilot. He told us, what we can and can't shoot in the aircraft. Windows bad.
Yeah, don't do that.
see this pipe here, very important. These cables, very important. Don't shoot that.
That always makes you think of Alien when there's like the little tiny hole in the spaceship and the alien gets sucked out.
Right. Put your seatbelt on really tight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Like, how naked do you feel when you can't carry your firearm? Because I feel like once you get used to it,
I get sick. I hate the ride to the airport. I hate the ticketing. I hate it just because it's been 34 years, give or take. But I get it. It's somebody else's job. What you got to think about though, and something that eases my stress is all the other things that we think about that don't involve our sidearms, like our awareness, our spatial awareness, our environmental awareness, our situational awareness. It's not just situational awareness. That's only one flavor. There's more than one kind of awareness. All of that really has to step up. And your contingency plan, thinking about your emergency exits and all the other stuff, you might not even think about that if you're carrying a gun. And if you do, that's foolish. You need to know where you need to go, because it's not about wanting a gunfight. It's about surviving one if you have no choice. But if you know those are the exits, it's even more important when you're not armed. Or look for the people that are armed, because if they know who I am, maybe they'll toss me one.
Right.
Let me tell you, one year we flew on September 11th coming back from a training mission. And when they saw our IDs, they asked us if we were armed. Mm-hmm. And we were like, well, no, it's a training mission. We're like, all right, well, the pilot wants to know where you're sitting anyway. And they introduced us to the Martians just because it was one of the anniversaries of September 11th. Right. And they were like, hey, if something happens, we might just toss you a pistol. And I'm like, good with that.
Yeah.
Happy to help. Once they were, they were happy with our credentials. They were like, oh, well, why not? Well, that's different paperwork, different policies. We don't have prisoners right now. So it's you learn more about what you're not allowed to do with a weapon than what you are. And that's somebody that I get it. It's somebody's knee-jerk reaction to kind of avoid accidents or bad things from happening, but we just can't control that. If we let go of the illusion of control and just make reasonable rules, I think we'd be okay. And that's probably a good segue into gun laws and buying guns and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and on that note, like how do you recommend someone go about educating themselves to carry a firearm? And like, is it pretty easy to acquire a firearm in Florida?
I think Florida's pretty fair. Florida's got a big history of hunting and fishing. It was a lot of Everglades. It was kind of like swampy woods before it was drained out and built up and developed. So a lot of the folks in government might have grown up hunting and fishing with their families, with their parents and their grandparents. So they don't fear them as an evil object. Whereas people in other parts of the country might be like, guns are bad. And I got to respect people's opinion. I got to respect why they have them. I just hope that they respect ours. Florida's never really been a problem for me. If you got a clean background, you can walk into a gun store and get through the background check just fine. And then depending on what county you're in, you have either a 3-day wait or a 5-day wait or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. That might be even a little bit easier than here. I think our background checks here take like, I don't know, 2 to 4 weeks, depending. Yeah. So
for us, for what I've seen in different shops, is it depends on how busy the ATF system is.
Yeah.
So if the ATF system is like 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, say, and they're not doing something else, you could be approved instantly, and then they pack it up and you're out the door. Or you could be walking around and shopping for a little while. I got a local gun shop guy, Nick, at Gunshot Arms in Boca. If he thinks it's going to be too long, he tells the customer, hey, this is looping. It could be a couple hours. You want to go home, I'll call you, or you want to come back tomorrow. At least so he's not wasting your time. So he's a good guy.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So if someone comes to you, and let's say it's a woman who comes to you and she's never owned a gun, fired a gun, nothing, and she's looking for some direction, like what would be a timeline that you could recommend to her and step-by-step kind of instructions, just if you could pare it down to?
Well, for shooting alone, I've learned from some professionals and some experts that I respect that there's basic skills, intermediate skills, and then advanced training. So in order to get to the basics, to crawl, walk, run, I do a house call where I come in with no ammunition and I put the gun on a coffee table and I take it apart and I put it back together. I let them hold it, male or female students. I let them hold it and just kind of get over the anxiety of it, or if there's any kind of a fear of it. And a lot of times what we see on the news has people anxious, and then my phone rings a lot. So it's about getting somebody comfortable first, and I don't push that. I don't rush that. So I have them hold it, understand the parts, understand how it works. I bring a little dry board and I explain the components of a cartridge and how the primer is struck, and that ignition lights the gunpowder and the gunpowder builds up, and how the cartridge works, how the gun works, how the cycle of operation works. And it's not a test question or anything like that, but it's neat to see them go, oh, you see the light come on and they're like,
right,
okay, that's not so bad. I compare it to driving a car. If you've been driving a car all of your adult life and I threw you my keys, you could run out and in an emergency and drive my car. You might have to adjust the seats. You might have to move the mirrors. You might say, you know what, I don't like this car, but I can drive it. So it's the same kind of a thing. I get people used to it like they're driving a car. And every car's got a steering wheel, at least 2 pedals, a shifter, air conditioning, the kind of music you like. And so those are the commonalities between cars. I compare that to grips, trigger guard, rear sight, front sight, so that no matter what kind of pistol you're picking up, look for those main components. Well, at least on American pistols or Western pistols. And it's easy to learn. It's easy to pick it up. It's easy to get familiar with it. It's easy to get comfortable with it. And then I talk about fundamentals of marksmanship with an empty gun or a plastic molded non-gun, or those polymer non-guns that everybody has, and in their living room where they're comfortable, and then they get good. And they get good at the fundamentals. And we either take a break so they can process and kind of absorb it, or come back on day 2 and then meet me at the range and we'll get started. So I like slowing it all down. I specialize in new shooters.
Let's pretend that they don't have access to you. Where should they go? And assume that they will find an instructor, but how would you tell them to proceed?
I would say shop around for a credible instructor. Shop around for an instructor that's going to have a significant amount of experience, maybe good Google reviews, maybe good reviews from other customers. If there's an established gun range, they generally have a decent staff. So if they don't have access to me, I would say find a gun range that's been around for a while, go in, make an appointment, and get a consultation from their instructors and go on their established paths so that they don't have to map it out themselves. It's already kind of done for you. Plus, it's business for the gun ranges and people like me. So it's less mental work for the student.
Right. Yeah. Well, when I first was trying to buy my gun, I went to the gun store first. So I'm like, of course I'm going to go to a gun store first. Where else do I go? Yeah. And I didn't have, there weren't a lot of ranges nearby. There's still not. This area really sucks for that. And so I just kind of went.
Everybody has big property, right?
Right. Yeah. We're definitely crammed in here. But yeah, I went to the gun store and, they really treated me like I was a total idiot. And I wasn't an idiot. I just didn't have a clue. And I think they were kind of busy and they didn't really have time to talk to me much about it. And so I didn't really get what I needed from them there. And they also didn't have any recommendations. They didn't have instructors on hand. They didn't have courses that they could recommend or anything. And so for me, I was just super confused and felt like, oh my God, is this how everyone feels? This is ridiculous. And so
that's understandable. That's a very fair point. If you don't have access to that, I would say you can pick up the fundamental safety rules or universal safety rules on the internet without even touching a gun. And you can, without even talking to an instructor, you can do that for free. So look up the safety for basic firearm safety so that you got a working knowledge of it before you go to a range or meet with somebody like me in your house or on a private range or in your backyard if it's legal to shoot in your backyard. If Once you've got that done, you can start with the fundamentals. If your instructor's not doing the fundamentals of basic marksmanship, maybe they put their own language on it, but it's stance, grip, breathing, sight alignment, sight picture, trigger pull, follow through. If it's not something like that, then they're just winging it. So that's why you kind of want to make sure that you shop and vet for a good instructor. Once you get through that for the basics, in some states, that's enough for your permit, whether it's owning it or carrying it, depending on what state you're in. All 50 states have their own flavor for how you carry or how you're not allowed to carry. But I suggest that once you've got the basics for pulling the trigger and getting a good bullseye, that you also think about first aid, that you also think about 911 etiquette, and my wife makes me say that because she's a dispatcher too. Stop screaming, know your address, answer the nice lady's questions. Medical mitigation. There was some research that says that the people that snap out of it after an active shooter and jump on the first aid and help people who have been shot or somebody that might have a heart attack have saved about as many lives or more lives than the first responders. So that's something to be proud of. That's something to work towards. That's something we can all get good at. Know the address where you are. Know the exits where you are. Have a phone with a good battery so that you can pick it up and dial the phone and say, somebody's been shot. The guy went that way. And that is a huge help. Or I'm with somebody that's been shot in the leg. And that's going to be a big part of saving that person's life. In addition to that, just as important is the legal knowledge. The self-defense law in your state is going to be unique to your state. So read it at least one time. I know we're intimidated by the law, but it's up there. It might sound complex, but just read it one time when you get through the self-defense or use of force for civilians. And you might find that it's surprisingly easy to at least get started. And if you have that working knowledge about safety, that working knowledge about the legal aspect, and the working knowledge of what to do in an emergency, you're at a good start.
Yeah, I think
that's the long answer to your question.
Totally fine. Yeah, I think for me, I really feel that way too many instructors are fully negligent when it comes to the follow-up information that you need as a new gun owner.
Sure.
Like you take this intro to pistol and they send you on your way. Like, there you go. Now you know how. And it's like, okay, cool. Now what? I feel like there's so much more that I need to know. And they don't even have a follow-up class. They don't have clinics you can go and get some actual instruction on how to shoot. And on top of that, and of course the medical part's super important as well. It should be part of the first course, in my opinion, if you can. I know it's a lot. But after that, like, you are not going to be in a defensive shooting situation and stand still with the right stance and your breathing's on point and like all that stuff. None of that's going to happen. It's going to be disaster. And so
disaster, unless you're really, really, really got good training and you're really, really, really applied the good practice, the more you're only going to be as good as how much you practice. I could put you through an amazing class, but if you never revisit it and your gun's in the top drawer of your nightstand for 5 years, how good are you going to be in that 6th year when the window breaks and your dog starts barking?
Right.
So it's a commitment, just like fitness and diet. And I sound like a hypocrite, but just like fitness and diet, it's a lifestyle. It's something you got to do something for it every day. You got to do something for it weekly, monthly, quarterly. And shooting's an expensive pastime. It's for recreational shooting alone. You can get into the thousands and thousands of dollars for
easily
a nice race gun and all of the the kit and belt, holsters, all the other stuff. But you don't have to do all that. You don't have to be an Indy 500 racer to be a safe driver on the interstate. Right. You drive every day. You pay attention every day. And I don't know if you guys use the term defensive driving out in Washington State. Yes, heard it. So if you can be a defensive driver, you can be a defensive thinker. You can be a defensive kind of self-defense kind of a thinker that way as well. When somebody cuts in front of you or passes you and you think, this jerk's going to come into my lane. And before they even do it, this jerk's going to come into my lane and slow down. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing? Because that can happen. You got both hands on the wheel. You focus on driving and not the radio or not your passengers. And you might cover the brake with your foot in case you need to stomp it. And you know what? Sure enough, you're right. This jerk got in front of me. And your preparation in those moments, that defensive driving, helped you with the proper response. Now think about a crime. like a robbery or an active shooter, and think, hey, that guy walked in, that guy's going to pull a gun out and rob the restaurant. If he doesn't, and you were ready, great. But if he does, you're ahead of the loop,
Right.
and you're not trying to catch up and save yourself, save your family.
Yeah, you have somewhat of a plan. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a game in our family. We'd come in and sit down at a restaurant, and I would ask the kid, if you could tell me 3 ways out of this dining room right now, you can choose dessert for the table. And it was a game. It wasn't a horror. It wasn't a traumatic thing. It wasn't a big scary thing that we talked to our kids about. It was like, she knew I was a cop. She knew her mother was a dispatcher. She knew that emergencies can happen. And she said, well, we walked into that door and there's a kitchen there. So if there's an exit light, there's an exit. And of course, there's a fire exit there. So there you go, 3. So in about 5 seconds, we had an emergency plan before we ordered drinks and appetizers and all the other stuff. So yeah, it's doable.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good way to go about it. And
I'm not defending every bad instructor that's out there, but if they're only focusing on pistols, that's because that's all they're good at.
Right.
I've made it a point for myself to study human performance and the biology and the psychology of violence. I've had some incredible role models and some books and some resources that help keep me alive for my 34 years of service, and I share a lot of that with my students. I'll either recommend books or draw from them and put stuff into my class. I have a seminar that I do that's no shooting at all. You just come in, sit down, and we talk about home security best practices. We talk about personal awareness in a self-defense mindset. We talk about self-defense on the law so that you know what might happen if you pull the trigger, what the investigation might be like, what prosecution might be like. I partnered with the USCCA, and they have a wealth of knowledge with their training material. One of their agents comes in and does a soft pitch on self-defense insurance, and then he sits down and I keep teaching and just trying to give people just a more well-rounded knowledge base.
Mm-hmm. So
it's not just about exactly. So that it's not just pulling the trigger; it's paying attention. It's what you say and what you don't say to the police, to protect yourself or to prepare your criminal defense or your civil defense. If a mugger attacks you and you have to protect yourself and you put that mugger in the hospital, you're getting sued. You might not get arrested, but that mugger is going to sue you. Or God forbid that person doesn't live, their mom is going to sue you and try to go after your savings and your house, with your pension and all the other, all your cars and all the other stuff. So you got to prepare. You have to. You don't think about that in the moment where you're shooting or not shooting, but you got to think about that ahead of time. Just like insurance for your home, insurance for your car, and all the other stuff. And there's a lot of good companies out there selling self-defense insurance coupled with training. Shop around for them and pick one that's best for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's definitely a good idea. USCCA doesn't cover Washington. Washington told them to kick rocks.
Like the gotcha. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean it's bad training though. So it's worth it for the
I agree.
For their YouTube videos and stuff like that. There's good stuff out there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
But if it's not them, then it's on people to find something that is going to fill that need.
So this may be an in-depth question, or it might be just really simple for you, but do you think women should be carrying a CCW?
Yes. Yeah, I think everybody should. I think every law-abiding citizen that's not a prohibited person should be, because I think the world it would take a while. There might be a learning curve, but I think it would make the world a safer place. If every bad person knew that every good person could protect themselves, it would give them pause. I know it would. I've seen it. Just like there was I think it was David Grossman. I don't know if your members are familiar with David Grossman. He was a psychologist in the Army that made a name for himself preparing special forces and law enforcement. He's a great teacher. But he gives an example. He said, somewhere in America, there's a guy who was thinking about murdering his spouse. But you know why he's not doing it? Because he sees a black and white police car roll down his street every once in a while, and he knows there'll be a consequence, and he might not do it. Now, that's a hypothetical. Right. But if the hypothetical for the robber is my victim might have a gun, then the robber might think twice. Just like if you got brake security or ADT alarm systems or something like, or protected by Smith & Wesson in front of your house, but there's a house that's got nothing, guess which one the burglar's going to choose?
Of course.
And when there's no choice, then are the burglars going to break down, go to college, get good jobs, and be law-abiding citizens? I don't know. Maybe not. It'd be nice. But I know that in that moment, there's a reason they're not choosing your house.
Right.
So we can give them a reason they're not choosing your family or your loved ones, because your spouse or your daughters may be prepared to protect themselves just fine.
Right. Yeah. Well, and until that happens, there's other things that we can be doing, from your posture, looking people in the eye, the way you carry yourself, and just the awareness that you were talking about earlier, right? So,
and even hit rewind on that, and not letting yourself get into a situation where, holy cow, I'm in a bad neighborhood, or holy cow, I took the shortcut to get back to my parking spot in a downtown area. But man, that is a creepy alley. I'm just going to go for it. Or a garage, or, a dark garage, or an elevator with a stranger or something like that.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with using a buddy system either. You're not
exactly right
for wanting someone else to walk with you. Yeah, exactly.
Sure. I've been halfway around the world, and the first thing they told us before we got off the ship was buddy system. Don't go anywhere. Don't flash cash. Don't wear big, ridiculous jewelry.
Right.
Don't be obviously American in parts of the world where they don't love Americans. So be aware of that, And it's like, if you think of yourself as an antelope, are you going to walk through the jungle where there's tigers? No.
Yeah.
But if you got to go somewhere, if you got to go be there, well, then, bring 40 antelopes, other antelopes with you.
Yeah, right. Hey, safety in numbers, right?
Exactly. And you know what? They look at that like, they can all kick my butt. I'm not going to mug them today. If it'll fool the dumb ones and they don't commit a crime, I'll take it.
Right.
If it'll fool the smart ones and and it discourages them, I'll take it. Here's one of the dogs now.
Oh, hi, puppy. Yeah. Well, and either way, it's like they want to pick the easy target. They're looking for someone
who's right. Because you know what? If they wanted to work hard for it, they'd work hard for it honestly.
Right.
So they're looking for the easy target, and they're looking for the victim that's not aware of their surroundings. If you're looking at your phone, walking down the street, you're limiting your focus to the 3-inch screen in your hand,
right?
And you're going to trip over something, or you're not going to realize you're getting mugged until they're close enough for you to smell it. That's too close, and that's on you. And some people will call that victim shaming, but I don't agree. It's something like 90% of violent attacks in the United States, the victim missed something that was an indicator of a pending attack. Like that car got off the exit behind me on the way home, or that guy staring at me in a bar, or somebody bumped into me in the mall or in the store. Pay attention to those things, because even in nature, you'll see that, I don't know if it's to be fair or what, but predators give some kind of a signal. It's either the color or the sound they make or the smell, but there's a signal. And if you're aware of it, you could get yourself out of a situation before you have to make a tough decision and use deadly force.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
You do. Mm-hmm. You do. And it's an ethic. It's an ethical or a moral or even a religious or spiritual decision for some people. And they say, I don't think I could take a human life. Okay, I get that. I respect that. But I wouldn't let somebody take my human life either, or my spouse's, or my kids, or my neighbors, or my friends. David Grossman put it greatly. He said, look, I'm going to shoot or not shoot if it's correct. And it's up to God and the paramedics if that guy lives or dies. And I thought, you know what? Well said. We're in the United States, and in my part of the country, you can be in an ambulance in 4 or 5 minutes. If it's not an active shooter situation, it's a scene. If the scene is safe, the fire department will ask you, hey, is the scene safe? Yeah, sure. And then you could have a shooting victim in an ambulance in about 5 minutes and at a trauma center in 30. And lives are saved that way.
Right.
So it's not about taking a human life. It's about protecting a human life. And you decide how you see the world.
Yeah, definitely. What's an unpopular opinion you have? I know you have some.
I do. I have it. My unpopular opinion is that justice is a process, not an outcome. So if you watch somebody go to court and everybody's thinking this guy's going to prison and he doesn't, well, justice was the process, not the outcome I want. And that holds true if there's a civilian in a deadly force situation, or a police officer in a self-defense situation. A lot of people make up their own minds from the 4-second video that's on the news over and over and over again, and they don't know all the facts. So I tell people, wait for the facts. We watch the story on the news and we lose our minds and say, how could they do that? How come that guy's not in jail? How come that cop didn't lose his job? Oh, that person's going to jail. You can't shoot somebody in the back. Sure. Take a breath and wait for all the facts. That's an unpopular opinion, even with some of my friends. I look at some, we've talked extensively about some school shootings, and you can't get away from the video of the police responding, and the police will get second guessed no matter what. So I'm not an apologist to say the police are always right. We screwed up. I'm not a policeman anymore, but they can have bad leadership, bad training, bad equipment, bad lighting, or bad cars, and it all contributes to a fail. It could. It really could. Does that mean those cops need to get fired or lose their pensions or something like that? No, I don't think so. But we look at tragedies from a place of emotion, and we demand a result that we're not going to always get. So we need to relax and not make ourselves unhealthy over it.
Oh, man, I couldn't agree more, given how many times the news has spouted off some total bullshit. It's like, no,
absolutely right. Facts. Exactly right. And you know what? Columbine was the beginning of the live media from the helicopter, and people are addicted to that. And psychologically, biologically, I think we're programmed to watch danger because we can learn how to take care of ourselves. So look at kids in a schoolyard. If there's a dumb fight in the schoolyard, the kids all crowd around it. They're not helping. They're watching, because that's one of the ways we learn as small humans. We're sponges for information. So even if it's just two kids wrestling or punching each other in the nose in the schoolyard, our subconscious is learning about that danger because we're fascinated by danger. That never really goes away. So whether we're looking at war in the Gaza Strip or an active shooter in an American school, we're glued to the television. We are, but we listen to the toxic, repetitive speculation, competition between schools of the news people, and it's too much. It's not healthy. It can really beat you up inside. So I learned from Gavin DeBecker is another great resource for your members. He wrote a book called The Gift of Fear. And in one of the follow-ons called Fearless, he recommends that if you got to watch those tragedies on the television, turn the sound off. Just turn the sound off and don't listen to the guessing. If you want the story, watch the story, but don't listen to people guessing. Well, right now the police commanders are deploying negotiators, and who cares? We don't need to get that. And I just posted about this a little while ago. Scooby and the gang want to figure it out before the cops do, because they want to make the cops look bad and say, look, Channel 7 exclusive. No offense if there's a Channel 7 person there around the country, but Channel 7 doesn't have to get a medal to figure out the killer's home address, before they find him. Stop it. Let the cops do their job. I look what happened. Was it the Atlanta bomber where the media mobbed a person of interest, and it turned out that he had nothing to do with it, and they ruined this guy's life. And I think a couple of them had to pay up in civil courts. So there's a fine line between freedom of the press and interfering with the police, and no one can make them observe that fine line. But we can make ourselves crazy watching all the guessing back and forth. So if you're seeing the same video over and over and over again, there's nothing new to report. Shut it off and get on with your day. Yeah, if you're not personally connected to the story, don't make yourself ill, really, really sick, watching all that nasty violence and stuff, or hearing the discussion about it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Marty, this has been awesome. How can people find you? And what do you offer? Like, what's your business like? Tell us about it.
My business, I offer educational talks, guest speaker opportunities. I do basic pistol, pepper spray. I'm working on a qualification for stun guns here coming up. I know you're shocked that I don't have that call. So I specialize in new shooters and basic and intermediate skills. So I can do that. A little bit of tactical stuff. one thing that was actually kind of special, a lot of churches have called me and asked me to help train their volunteers. So I've been able to help do that and help those people who are putting themselves in that position to make a safe, legal, and reasonable decisions when the time comes. If they'll come to me and give me the opportunity to train them. My website is www.umtc-instructor.com, and I'm also on Instagram and Facebook under Martin Castellanos. So anybody can find me. Anybody can ask me anything. I love just chatting with people because I'm retired now, and my job, my company is a way to just stay busy and share knowledge so it doesn't go to waste.
Okay, great. And then is there a place where they can just register for a class that's ready to be offered, or do they need to contact you directly in order to find out what you have going on?
If they want a private lesson, I book that with the individual, so they contact me directly. If I've got a posted class like my seminars or a small shooting class, I'll post it on my social media with links so that people can get on and do that. And generally right now it's in South Florida.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much. This has been great. We'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much. Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
I don't know when you're going to air this, but my next seminar in South Florida is November 18th.
Okay.
And any members of your organization, if they reach out to me and tell me that they're members, they can get a 2-for-1 for that self-defense orientation, that classroom.
Awesome.
Seminar.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the chance to talk.